You're a fool.
Welcome everybody to the Racing Foolz podcast, powered by Low Budget TV and brought to you by Crown Performance. Joining me today is the Low Budget TV team of Jeffrey Best and Tommy Mason, and today we're talking all about esports, guys. It's all the rage right now with all the real racing shut down. Everybody's iRacing. It's almost like a fad, but not quite. And it's funny though, because even though a lot of people are new to iRacing, but I'm sure a lot of people have grown up with racing video games. This is just the next evolution of that. And I thought it'd be a nice, time to just talk about iRacing, the effect of it on motorsport right now, as well as our past experiences with video games as well.
I think it's pretty crazy how we're seeing motorsport simulations on network television. Now, I know that it's a thing that it's happened in the past. We get an Australian TV show, Speed Week, who has had their own esports type of universe over there, a show dedicated for pros racing against esport superstars. But now we've got it in the States. We've got it in NASCAR. We've got it in road racing, open wheel, everything now, because motorsports as a whole and the world as a whole is shut down. I think we as motorsports people benefited huge because you get the realism as close as you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to pretend like I see the silver lining in all this. I'm still waiting for my cars back on the racetrack.
Right.
But like you said, though, this is a very unique opportunity, in that we can, it's not something we have to take seriously, but it is that little kind of ray of fun sunshine that we get. And it's been so interesting that, like you said, that we've been, we now see it on Fox where there's an iRace on there. And for anyone and everyone that's been on the harping side of, trying to convince people how legitimate iRacing is and why it's a big deal, this is their hour. Like they're getting everything that they could ever hope for right now.
I mean, they got to just be raking in the cash right now, right? If you're
the
iRacing,
subscribers, and everything, because it's the only thing to do. All these race car drivers are sitting with cars in their garages, unfortunately. But of course, we got to get this world better, so we can go play racing in real life. But one of the things that I thought would be fun about this topic is how we can branch back to when we, as all three of us, all kind of started our motorsports careers in our hands or at the wheel. What would be your startup, Charlie?
Oh, well, I mean, for me, I always wanted to race when I was a kid, but I'm Asian, so my parents said no. So I was basically stuck with two things. That's RC cars and video games. So, I started as a console kid. It's ironic that I am Asian and I knew nothing about computers. I still barely know a lot. I mean, I use it, for work and for stuff here and there, but I don't know specs or graphic card specs or stats. I just know that somebody said, buy this computer. It's good. It works for iRacing. I said, okay. But I even today, I don't know much about computers. So growing up, I was a console kid. I started with the Genesis. My first game was, it came with Sonic, but my only other two games were racing games. It was Super Monaco GP and ESPN Speed World, the one with Dr. Jerry Punch. So, and then later on to PlayStation, you had a Ridge Racer, you had your Gran Turismo, which to me is still my favorite console series of all time that isn't NASCAR related. And then obviously later on, EA had the NASCAR franchise, so you had NASCAR 98, NASCAR 99, everybody had 2003, 2004, and then my last console game was 2005, Chase for the Cup. So, that's kind of what I grew up doing, and, that was my childhood. I mean, just trying to win every race and beat every record and win every championship in a video game. So, and that's all I was able to really do until I was an adult making my own money to go racing?
See, I was different because I had started on the PC world. I had the steering wheel, I had the pedals, and until '98, NASCAR wasn't on console games, and there was games similar to NASCAR, which I know Jeffrey will get into because I played a lot when I would go to his house. Would be a game on Sega very similar, or at least had a NASCAR aspect. But I owned the NASCAR games, man. I had NASCAR '94, so that would be NASCAR Racing 1, 2, 3, through till NASCAR 2013 on the console or on the PC side. So I was out there simulating racing and Papyrus Racing Games, which are the same people now that have formed iRacing. So I had dipped into that world, but unlike iRacing, man, there was one setting on that PC that I knew I will never touch in my life, and that was a button to click multiplayer. And my parents said, if I catch you on multiplayer, you will never see the light of day. Not that mean, but it was because you had to pay for internet back then. And multiplayer was obviously racing online against others. And so not till literally the final PC game that was out before iRacing, NASCAR Racing 2013, was when I started multiplayer, because at that point...
2013?
I'm sorry, 2003. There was a 3 at the end of it. But yeah, NASCAR 2003 was the first time I started multiplayer, because by then, internet was a packaged service. So you didn't have to pay for megabytes a second type of thing. But yeah, I didn't get into consoles until, I want to say, probably 2010-ish. And that would be a GameCube. So I got to play Dirt to Daytona, NASCAR Heat, Test Drive Eva Destruction, and all those other games on GameCube until I got an old used PlayStation 2, eventually PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4. And a lot of that was to do with because I didn't have a computer that could handle iRacing. So I just jumped over to the console world. I obviously... Jeffrey and I were starting with low budget TV. There really wasn't that much time to do gaming and whatnot because we're editing videos. So that's my story. Is I started in the PC world and I just got back to iRacing very recently. But what about you, Jeffrey?
1 second.
Kids.
Would you like me to elaborate?
Kids will never know the struggle, Tommy.
I know, that's Jeffrey trying to plug in his internet. The sound that Jeffrey made was the same noises that's the same noises we'd all make when we're waiting for the dial-up to continue.
Or when somebody picks up the phone.
Yeah. While you're on the internet. Yeah.
So I have it here in my hand. I'm holding my first ever racing game, EA Sports Mario Andretti Racing on the Sega Genesis.
So good.
It was assembled in Mexico, for those wondering.
Good.
And yeah, this was a 1994 game. And yeah, I remember. So a lot of things, like my parents were very much the, oh yeah, you can have fun, but you're paying for it type of thing. So when I got a Sega Genesis, I had to buy it based off of my allowance that I had made. And I remembered getting this game, and it had 2-player, and Tommy and I racing on this. And Tommy, someday we should revisit this game.
I would love to. Yeah.
We absolutely should.
You're starting up the gaming channel, so I would love to be a guest.
We do actually. It's called Ready Player Dumb. And at some point, I'd love to go back to these old games. So, yeah, Mario Andretti Racing was like my step into the racing world. Now, for those that don't know, Tommy and I have known each other our whole lives. Literally our whole lives, as from the moment we've had consciousness to actually know we know people. I've known Tommy, and
yeah, Jeffrey was one of the first people I remember knowing.
Yeah, and it goes likewise. So for me, I still had the experience of this PC game that Tommy's talking about. I also had with me so much jealousy, going, gosh dang it, because we got a computer, and when we got it, I think it was 97, 98. I think it was 98. And we tried to put NASCAR on it, and it didn't work. We didn't have the right computer specs or something.
Yeah.
And it didn't work on our computer. And I was like, dang it. So I never got to play it on my own PC until way later when I ended up with NASCAR Racing 2003. So for me, I was a console player. We got a PlayStation around 2000. And I know that's the year around that we got it because the game that I grew up with that was much more serious than the Mario Andretti Racing was NASCAR 2000 on the PlayStation 1.
Mm-hmm.
And in this game, they had the opportunity, they gave you the option to race the races at 100% length. Now, when I got it was the family's PlayStation 1, right? But really, it was mine.
Right.
We all know that.
You were the true Cyberdale.
Cyberdale. And so I had a steering wheel and pedals that would plug into the PlayStation, and I would sit in my family's living room playing probably in the most uncomfortable form, but I would do 100% races, hours of a single race, and back then I think there were like 16 tracks that were actually made up the season. I remember it was the weirdest thing for a long time. Consoles wouldn't have certain tracks, or they'd super screw up like road courses. Like they would just make up whatever they'd want and call it Sonoma.
Yeah, it was a big deal when they got
I think
all
it
of
was
them.
a licensing thing.
Yeah.
The same with the race cars. I think
that's true.
not all of them had it.
And so I used to do those. Like I said, I don't know what I was thinking, but I was doing them at 100%, and I felt like here I am. I am a race car driver. I'm doing it. And I'll never forget the day that I broke my steering wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was warranted, but I was doing a 100% race at Bristol, and there were 15 laps to go, and I had lapped the entirety of the field at least 3 times.
You were set, man. You're just traveling home.
I was, and again, kind of a reminder: these games did not show damage really, but you had the option, and I don't know why I chose this option. You had the option of it saying if you crash bad enough, we'll take you out of the race, and I had 100% damage on. I don't even think it was called 100% damage, and I was going, and I think it was Kyle Petty. It was on my outside, and he decided that he was going to pit.
Oh.
Just
And when
left
he
turn.
did, he turned so hard into me and took me down the pits. And of course, I'm like, "Oh, that sucks." And I think that was the worst word I knew at the time. And I thought like, now I'm gonna pit and I'll get back out, but I should still be able to win. And my car pulls into the pit, and then it said your race is over.
Oh no!
And all I remember, I don't remember how my steering wheel broke. I just know that it was in 2 pieces after that happened, and I was like, "What happened? What happened to my steering wheel?"
Did you hate Kyle Petty from that day on?
Kyle and I have talked since then.
Yeah.
Virtually, and we agree to disagree on the whole situation, but yeah, no, it was, man, I tell you,
Shades of Ryan Blaney and Daniel Suarez.
I did not hold it against Kyle Petty. And I think it was Kyle, someone who knows this game better probably is like, he's not even in that game, but yeah, that might have been around the time where my 100% career ended. So I'm not doing this anymore.
So Jeffrey, is it true that when you were in the middle of a race and you had to go to school or go to sleep, you would just hit the pause button, go to school, come back, and just resume? So your system would be on for 8 hours waiting for you to come back home?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it would be on. It would be. I mean, it probably took me 3 days to get through one of these races. And I can't. That's one reason I can't wait to look back at it and be like, how much did the steering wheel even make a difference? Like on a game that old, where it was like, who cares? But but yeah, no, I would have to pause because my mom was probably yelling at me to go to bed, and then yeah, I would try to sneak on early in the morning before school, get 10 laps in, and then pause. And I tell you, like, it was a real heartbreaker if we ever had like the electricity go out for a minute.
Yeah.
That's all it would take. And yeah, just going back to it, it's funny that we're getting back into this gaming channel right now, because that's at some point I want to revisit, and I'd love, Tommy, for you to come over for that to go over some of these old racing games and how bad the graphics look now. Because back in the day, it was like, this is amazing.
Yeah,
We didn't know.
Well, we will be voicing a Outlaw Figure 8 episode soon, so maybe I'll just have to make a trip.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So it's funny you brought up a story about your steering wheel breaking, Jeffrey, because Tommy told me another story
Oh yeah.
of when his steering wheel stopped working while he was leading an iRace.
So I was this was the end of my iRacing career before I rejuvenated it most recently. And this is all before the coronavirus, the rejuvenation, by the way. But back then, the computer was alone very difficult to run iRacing because it was new and the computer was old. So there were some spec issues that didn't work well. But it worked enough. I mean, 25 frame rate isn't bad. So I can still see things. And I break out the old steering wheel, create an iRacing account, and jump on. And we're doing legend cars. And we go green. I qualified up front. And we go green. And I had known, now between the two of us, or three of us, I had known that my steering wheel is kind of older, and it kind of gave me some fits, especially the pedals. But I didn't think that it would do anything wrong. I mean, maybe I'd have to hit the gas twice for it to respond. But as far as I knew, the brakes were okay. Well, coming to the green, we get the green flag, and I'm on the gas, and something happened. The brake went full lock in front of the field, and everybody wrecked behind me. Everybody thought that I brake checked intentionally. Like, you've never heard so many bad words in your life. And that's when I called it a career on iRacing, because I didn't have the computer, for one. I definitely didn't have the steering wheel. I had the cable wrapped around the actual body of the steering wheel because it needed to be held in a certain position. I had taped it to the body of the steering wheel, and I thought I had it all figured out. It worked fine in qualifying. It worked fine in practice, and I brake checked the field. Everybody got damaged, and I left. So,
Hey guys, time to pay the bills. Here's a commercial.
When performance matters most, the pros trust Crown Performance. Constructed from Teflon, Kevlar, and stainless steel, Crown Performance brake lines exceed all industry standards, will hold up against the harshest conditions, and provide ultimate stopping power, whether it's for the street or the track. We offer customized sizes and colors to fit any application. Visit crownperformance.com to learn more. crownperformance.com. crownperformance.com.
You ditched?
I ditched, man. Jeffrey's got some good stories about me up front of a Talladega race.
That was coming up whether you wanted it to or not. So, there's been a lot of forms of communication that people have used while they online race. I know that back in the day when Tommy and I used to be in a racing league called MRL, back in our 2003 days, we would all be in TeamSpeak. Before Tommy and I ever got in TeamSpeak, though, we figured it out, man. In fact, we've improved upon, how like sometimes people have radio issues during NASCAR races. The problem is they're not using their phones, their home phones.
Yeah.
So Tommy and I would race these races. We'd call each other for like 2 or 3 hours. Tie up the phone lines and literally be talking with us having the phone like resting on our shoulder. And that's how we would communicate. And
So
and
if I could help paint a picture for a little bit, because
Please.
I don't know if people understand what we're exactly talking about, but we would literally, from about after school, 6 p.m. till about 10, we would literally be on the phone with it literally between our ear and the shoulder, and we would drive with one elbow up and the other on the steering wheel, and you and I would radio communicate because we didn't know what TeamSpeak was, we didn't know what Discord was, and I finally got to the point where we got serious enough to where we went to Walmart and bought a $10 pair of wireless telephone headsets, and that made life easier before we both got out of it. But yeah, we would run for iRacing World. We would run a bunch of Carburetor Cup style races where they were all restrictor plates, and Jeffrey and I, we were the perfect teammates.
Dude, we were good. We were really good because really, if you survive through the first lap, then it's your opportunity. And in these races, you usually had to pit at least once.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that would happen is that if Tommy or I got knocked out, we would usually wait to hook up with each other, and then so whoever was a lap down essentially pulls a Denny Hamlin during the clash, which feels like it happened 3 years ago at this point, and would help the other one, and because of this, us working together, most other people that were playing this were kind of just on their own, or they just weren't that good because we were contenders, man, on these restrictor plates. So if any Cup team's looking for a duo to help them out, Tommy and I were pretty good, and we could communicate with our cell phones.
But one time, yeah, we, thanks to me, nobody made it out of turn 1 turn 2 at Talladega.
So this was a magical moment. I'll tell it from my point of view, and then I'll let Tommy.
I don't have much of a story. You have most of it, so take the reins.
Tommy and I are racing together, and I'm trying to remember. I don't think we were on the phone for this particular race because I think I found out later what happened. But you, oh man, we might have been on TeamSpeak at this point.
Yeah.
And you and I were racing our way through the field, and I had just shoved Tommy to the lead, right? And this race, let me point out, where most races, there was a goofball with bad internet that would take everyone out or cause a big wreck. This race had gone 6 or 7 laps. We have rows 3 wide by 3 wide. This race is incredible. And I shoved Tommy to the lead, and he gets up there and he starts blocking, and I fall back a little bit on the outside line. And we're going down the back straightaway at Talladega. And I'm like, okay, I'll relink with Tommy here. I just need to settle down. I can't believe we haven't wrecked. And it was about that moment, headed into turn number 3, where Tommy's car goes from right around the middle of the track. All of a sudden, I see it fly out of the wall, fly back onto the apron, into the grass, and then comes swinging back and literally takes out every car that was in the field. Every single car, to the point where one thing they never did was restart and just say, okay, that was a wash, forget it. They completely had to reset this race because nobody was left.
I wiped the entire field out.
I was like, Tommy, what the hell just happened?
Well, I can tell you from my side of the story. I think this was like one of those after-school races. So I had gotten home from school, finished up my homework. It was early evening time, and my dad needed help with something. And I said, okay, I'm online race. I'm racing. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Well, he needed help now. And that was not the right answer. So he goes, no, I need your help now. And I'm like, Dad, I'm in the middle of an online race. I swear I'll be right there. And he goes, no, I need your help now. And I'm like, hang on 15 minutes. And that was it. So I was racing on a laptop. And he slammed the laptop shut. And when I say slammed, it wasn't as fast as you would think. But he closed the lid of the laptop, effectively turning it off. And that's what happened with the field. Because all I heard when the laptop lid closed, it was a huge wrecking noise. I heard the in-car of a catastrophic wreck. I mean, very similar to the in-car audio of Jeffrey Bodine in the truck race at Daytona. So I knew I had done something wrong. I didn't realize to what effect.
Oh, Tom.
Wow.
Yeah, so
It was such a big mess. I think we got banned.
I can tell you this, though, is that I know Jeffrey's working on trying to get back into iRacing. It might be actually sooner than later, so we might have to rekindle the flame and
Get our phones out?
get our phones out. Yeah, we got cell phones now, so
Man,
don't have to worry about the microwave.
I don't have cool stories like you guys. I didn't get to race people. I only just raced the computer.
That was always the toughest part. I feel like, I mean, AI versus real life people. I feel like the multiplayer setting is difficult because you never know what you're going to get. Whereas AI, what I always hated about AI racing is they were invincible, right?
Yeah.
Their tires never fell off. They never had to, run out of gas or maintain a speed. And they were just set on track. And whatever that track is, that's what you're going to get. And here we are spinning our tires, going below the apron, stuff like that. So AI racing is definitely a lot more difficult, or a lot less difficult than multiplayer, but a challenge of its own.
Well, maybe one day off. Cool stories like you guys.
Well, you're iRacing now, so we can get some stories out of you soon.
Maybe if I get some of those people back that are on my hit list.
Yeah, everybody has a hit list on iRacing, and I know yours is growing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know what? Since we're on the topic, and I think Jeffrey mentioned the seriousness that iRacing and whatnot has become, but are you guys kind of surprised, like I am? I'm a little surprised where these drivers are taking it as serious, because here they are risking their lives every weekend, and now they have a chance to be at home and not risk their lives, but to race. And they are going out there 100% for the win. They get upset at each other. We had issues,
trying to wreck. Ty Dillon.
So you had stuff like that, but
I hope that carries over to when they're actually on track and they're like, "Remember when you took me out?"
But that's what I'm saying. So, like, are you guys kind of surprised that these guys aren't goofing off a little bit, or do you think someone's telling them like, "Hey, you guys are still playing a serious role"?
Here's the deal, Tommy. As far as I take it, let me go back to me racing at Bristol with Kyle Petty getting ready to pit and then breaking my wheel. Mm-hmm. And you tell me about people taking video games too seriously. I honestly think that what we have here is you got competitors who want to compete.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
And when they're up against each other, it turns into bragging rights. They don't care. It goes back to that whole adage of people saying, back in my day, I used to just race for a trophy. This is racing at its
purest.
It is racing at its purest. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, this is like the new like achievable, but no, I mean, by all means, this is 100%. These drivers are, it's racing for the competition side, and luckily for, I guess I should say, they have the option of it not being too expensive, but these guys have money to spend. So.
Well, on that note, I mean, like, Denny Hamlin drops $40,000 on a sim rig. I think he's going to take it serious.
Right. Yeah.
So, but Tim Hill proved that you don't need a $40,000 sim rig. You could have a $250 wheel and pedal set on a desk, and that'll, if you're good, you're good. And that's kind of one thing I'm taking away from this. It's great to see a lot of the low budget guys doing so well, getting TV time for their sponsors that normally wouldn't happen unless they were getting lapped or wrecked. So It's cool to see that. I don't put too much stock into it. Like, obviously we know that Kyle Busch and Jimmy Johnson are not that bad in real life, but it's cool to see a more equal playing field. Because,
it's a shakeup. Yeah.
And I could see this maybe being like a little tradition thing, maybe during the off season, like, that we might see this become more of a thing.
I think it should. I
also, like, it is it's bringing out the best, I feel like, where people are finding the humor and the enjoyment out of this. But I'm also laughing, and I'm curious what you guys think about this, because I saw before the race, and now I'm still well, I caught the qualifying race beforehand, and leading into that, there was kind of this discussion about who should have been allowed in the main field in the first place. I don't know if you guys saw this, where like Joey Gase was kind of like, hey, what the heck? Did you guys see this?
I did not, but I just know Majeski had to come through the B main, so.
Yeah, so there, because essentially what they did was they took 31 Cup drivers and then said everyone else has to race their way in, and guys like, I think it was Joey Gase, Brennan Poole, and maybe Reed, I don't know, someone else, and essentially Joey was like, well, this is BS. Like, who says they get to be in and we don't? We're Cup drivers too. And I get his point of view, but unfortunately, I don't know if you guys saw the qualifying race. I think Joey finished like 2 laps down.
Yeah.
Did not do his best on defending himself on hey, we should have been in this.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't me calling out Joey. I just laugh because, again, like, what this comes down to is, this is for fun,
Right.
And I guess I kind of see the whole side where Joey's coming from, where he's like, well, this isn't fair. Like, we're Cup drivers. Why aren't we considered Cup drivers? I mean, that's just, I guess, name of the game status. I don't know.
I wonder if, because let's face it, right? Like, this is a cool thing. It's a fun thing. But let's not lose sight of one reason they're doing this. They're doing this so we get to see the stars still in some way, shape, or form in some kind of competition. And, they want to make sure that the guys they want in the race are in the race, and then, like, the rest of you guys can figure it out after,
Mm-hmm.
So it's not fair, but I mean, that's probably one reason it's like that.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want your 25 superstars and then everybody else.
I mean, like, let's face it, if it was just based on speed, I mean, Jimmy might not have made the first race.
Yeah.
So
but he's not going to not make. I mean, Kyle Busch, he's not going to not be in the race. All the big names, they're the draw. And once we get back to normal, do I think that this is still going to be a big talking point? No. I think it's going to go back to normal in some regards. I think it's still elevated the awareness of iRacing and esports. And I think, this probably could be a thing where we could see a midweek, iRace event every now and then. But I think once we get back into it, there's going to be the whole sponsor obligations, everything. Nobody's going to have time to devote what they have now into it. But it's still fun. I get up, actually, I feel like I get up more now because I don't have a Saturday that I've been at, Saturday gig to want to sleep in. So I actually get up, set my alarm, so I can watch the Sunday Bristol race or last week's Texas, because I'm a race fan and I want to see competition. So,
and one thing I was telling Tommy too, Jeffrey, is if you're watching them live, the start times are very similar to what it was when we were growing up, like racing at 10.
Yeah.
And it's like we got so used to all the pre-race and all the blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, racing doesn't start till noon or 1. But now it's like, oh, it's like the old days, just go straight to the racing.
Right.
So I just hope that it's not considered a fad.
I think it might be too big for a fad. I just don't know
what might be considered a fad.
Just esports in general.
I don't think it is, especially before this whole coronavirus. They were airing on NBC the NASCAR
Coca-Cola series,
Peak, Coca-Cola, whatever.
I don't think it's going to be a fad. I think some people are convinced it's going to be bigger.
Right.
Like, to me, I don't know. I mean, I'm still surprised when I see poker tournaments on ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, this is okay, I guess.
Well, that goes both ways. I mean, it's kind of tricky with that because when it blew up, one reason it blew up was because a lot of the websites that were like the poker, like play poker on our website type of deals, but then they all got busted. So, and when they all got busted, it sort of went away. But one other reason, well, two other reasons became popular is number one, like everybody's like, oh, I could play poker, and everybody's like, I could be the World Series of Poker champion because it could literally be anybody. And then number two, ESPN loved it because it was just cheap programming that people watched. So, and esports is the same way because, like, you know, it doesn't, compared to, you know, trying to air something that takes more cameras and people to run those cameras, and esports is a lot easier to, you know, it's a lot cheaper to.
You don't have to travel to the gig.
Yeah.
You know,
So.
no airfare or nothing. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a quick and dry fad. I just think it's going to, you know, once we're back to racing, we're probably not going to see what we see now. So.
I mean, you won't see like the guys that we know doing it, but
right.
The question is, well, would people watch, you know, the professional iRacers? I'm not even sure if I would. I mean, I would if I catch it. I wouldn't like go out of my way to watch it though.
That's the tricky one, is because I don't think you're going to get me to watch. You're not going to get me to watch those guys as much as I would watch the pros in those iRacing pros world.
Honestly, I like whenever I hear anyone actually over legitimize it, I think it's hurting their case.
Right.
Like,
it's
that's
kind of a
when
turn
I roll
off.
my eyes.
Yeah.
Well, because like for me, I'm like don't even try to compare. Like, I don't think that esports is going anywhere. Like, specifically when I say esports, like iRacing, I think it's still going to be its big thing and always be very popular because of what it offers. And plus, like, we saw how big NASCAR, you know, Racing 2003 was, and iRacing kind of picked that up. And this is going to help actually iRacing if nothing else.
Oh, I'm sure it already has.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been huge for them, I'm sure. So, yeah, no, I get a kick out of it. I think what's purely, and this isn't me knocking anyone else, but I think what really sells me on it is that they went as far as saying, no, we're gonna have Mike Joy call it with Jeff Gordon, like, you know, like going to that length. And you know, to kind of bring it in as a regular NASCAR broadcast, because I know there's announcers who do the iRacing stuff. Tommy and I might even be doing some iRacing announcing here soon. But that to me is what kind of completes what feels like a bit of normalcy in what right now isn't. And yeah, you know, it's fun. And again, like Tommy said, you know, once things get back to normal, I don't see this necessarily changing anything. I mean, I've actually, if anything, from what I've seen so far, it's almost shown me why, because we've seen some people talk about like, oh, they should maybe they should have this help fill in some of the races that don't happen. And if anything, this has kind of shown us, while there are legitimate series that iRacing has and whatnot, it's that the smallest, simplest things can also ruin your day. Oh, my computer just did this, or this just happened, and
right.
and you know, it knocks out these guys that are part of the main field. That, you know, Jimmy Johnson in the first race they did at Homestead, I think, missed the first 6 laps because he couldn't figure something out. So that's why it's like, you know, we got to take it for what it is, and it's right now it's entertainment, it's for fun. And yeah, I mean, I like that they're doing it. Like I said earlier at the beginning, I cannot wait for us to not be doing this, because that means we're back to racing. So,
amen to that. Mm-hmm. But definitely an interesting time. I know a lot of people that we both know, or we all know, who are big into iRacing, that are really, like, you know, excited about it. And I'm not gonna go so far as to say that, you know, it should be like bigger than what it is, but it's definitely cool to see everybody involved in it, and you know, so hopefully we'll get you back full time one day, Jeffrey, online, and we'll all be racing.
Oh boy! And then maybe some guy can sing the national anthem in his garage before every race we do.
Yeah, on their potato phone video.
Cool. Well, that's all we have for today, folks. So thanks for tuning in. And we'll catch you next time on the Racing Foolz podcast, powered by Low Budget TV and brought to you by Crown Performance. Racing Foolz podcast is produced by TQ Media House in association with Low Budget TV. Special thanks goes out to Tommy and Jeffrey from Low Budget TV, Kelly McGuire for the free mic and mixer, and Ramon Ariola for helping create various show elements. Music is provided by RFM, royalty-free music in the YouTube audio library. If you like what you hear, give Low Budget TV a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what you think. We welcome all questions, comments, and ideas, and who knows, maybe your idea will be the next topic on the Racing Foolz podcast.